Hello, welcome to Casual Veteran Gamer. In the video today, I'm going to be giving you an actual build for a sorcerer. If you're more interested in the sorts of things you need to be thinking about when creating a sorcerer, I have created another video, which is like the guide to the sorcerer. This is a particular build for the sorcerer. The idea behind this build is it is nice and basic, easy to use, nothing fancy, don't need to rely on magic items particularly, and you won't go wrong with this. So, what does the sorcerer look like? At level 1. We have to name them something. We've obviously got the best name here. As a background, I've chosen Charlatan, so they've got proficiency in Deception and Sleight of Hand, because Sleight of Hand is going to be useful during the game, not just for stealing, but also for disabling locks and things. And Deception, I'll get to why Deception later, actually very soon. For race, I'm going to pick an Asmodeus Tiefling. This is for several reasons. One, we get resistance to fire damage. Secondly, we get some dark vision. We've got +2 in charisma. It's important we've got a charisma of at least +1. And we get the Thaumaturgy cantrip. What I'm not going to pick for the sorcerer is friends. I have picked Thaumaturgy because we can give ourselves advantage on intimidation and performance, which are 2 of the 4 charisma based checks. Then from the origin, we're going to get proficiency in deception, and from the class skill, we're going to pick persuasion as the other one. And I picked also arcana. This doesn't matter so much. There are other choices, but if you're more interested in other choices, please look at my other video. Appearance. Pick whatever you want. I actually just randomly hit the arrow a random number of times, and this is what I ended up with. I thought it was quite good, actually. Class, Sorcerer. Now, for the subclass, I am going to pick Draconic Bloodline, because this is just a bit more stable. But don't feel bad if you like the Wild Magic Sorcerer, please go ahead and use it, but I just don't want to use it for this particular build. For cantrips, we get to choose 4. Actually, I'm going to go to the Dragon Ancestor first before going to the cantrips. So for this particular build, I'm going for White, Cold. Mostly because we get access to Armour of Agathis, which is quite a difficult spell to get a hold of. We can get this from Magic Initiate Warlock, and this spell is not normally available to sorcerers, so it's a nice different spell. The only other Dragon Ancestor that does this is the Copper Dragon, which gives you access to Tasha's Hideous Laughter. But anyway, for this build, I'm going for white. Also quite like this kind of dichotomy of having a white dragon as an ancestor, but also this devilish sort of ancestor from being a tiefling. So we've got the fire and the cold, like 2 complete opposites there. We do get to change the appearance. I have seen some people say that they can't change the scales. I honestly have no idea why that's happening currently. I've just gone with scales 1. I think it suits him quite nicely. So going up to the cantrips, we get a choice of 4. I would say pick at least 1 cantrip that gives you some kind of versatility, something outside of combat, although light can be used in combat. I've gone for Rare Frost because I'm going to go with the whole theme of cold if I can, which also Armour of Agathis does. Shock and Grasp is good for getting you out of difficult situations, and Acid Splash, its AoE is fixed. You can use this when you've got maybe 3 enemies close together, so you've got the chance to hit 3 of them. Most of these are quite good, right? You should of course feel free to pick whatever you want. For spells, since we have taken the Dragon Ancestor, we don't need to take Mage Armour, so we can leave that alone. I would pick Chromatic Orb. It's a great new spell, very versatile as well as damaging, and Magic Missile is just such a reliable spell. Every arcane caster I ever have, I always give Magic Missile. There's nothing else to choose, just keep in mind that we get +1 hit points every level, and our armor class is going to be 13 plus our dexterity modifier. Skills I've already gone through. Ability points, I'd put charisma up to 16, that is your casting stat. Constitution, dexterity at 14 each. I've put strength up to 11 because I like having half decent jump distance, but also more importantly, it means I can carry more stuff. At level 2, we get a new feature, which is to do with sorcery points. So we can create sorcery points from sacrificing a spell slot, spending a spell slot, or we can spend sorcery points to create a spell slot. I found during my playthrough with sorcerers so far, I haven't been using this very much, but it's always good to have in the background as a backup. Then we get these meta magics. I'm going to pick Distant Spell, and I get to a couple of spells where I think this is really useful later. And Twin Spell is currently, I think, quite clearly the best meta magic at the moment. It's not that the others are bad, it's not that we shouldn't take any of the others or ignore them, but I'll be showing you why Twin Spell is kind of a bit broken at the moment. As for spells, I'm going to be taking Witch Bolt, not Burning Hands at this point. I'm not going with the Fire and Ice theme at one point, because Witch Bolt can be linked with the Wet condition to do double damage from lightning or cold sources, but there are no cold damage spells here. So I'm going to go with Witch Bolt. I'm not going to replace any spells, I'm just going to keep him as he is. With Twin Spell, just going back to this for a second, you can use meta magics with scrolls. So you can, for example, twin Mage Armour from a scroll. You can twin Goodberry to create 8 Goodberries instead of just 4. At level 3, we get 1 more sorcery point, of course extra hit points, and we get 3 new options: Heightened, Quickened and Subtle Spell. I would say Quickened Spell is going to be best for this sorcerer because they don't have any saving throw spells, so Quickened would probably be a better option. I wouldn't pick Misty Step. I would use Minthara's Necklace for that. Instead, go with Cloud of Daggers. This is a good little AoE spell that can damage enemies twice before they can do anything on their turn. There are lots of good choices here. If you're going to go with the Fire and Ice theme, Scorching Ray is a very powerful choice as well. Not going to replace any spells. And because we are an Asmodeus tiefling, we get Hellish Rebuke. So now we'll have Armour of Agathis and Hellish Rebuke that can deal damage to people when they hit us. At level 4, another sorcery point up to 4, 1 new cantrip. I'm going with the whole Fire and Ice thing. I'm going to keep Firebolt. As for spells, going to go back to the theme, pick up Scorching Ray. Then at level 4, it's Feat or Ability Score Improvement. As I said, this is just like your basic build, keeping it simple. Just going to add 2 to Charisma, make all of our spells even more powerful and more likely to hit. I'm in a dialogue and I have the choice of Deception and Persuasion. Sorcerer didn't take Friends. However, we have Guidance in our team. So we've got quite a large bonus, which is why we don't need Friends. If you want to take Friends, that is fine. Maybe another character, you can get Gale to take Friends perhaps. Not a problem. But with a +4 in Charisma and proficiency in Deception and Persuasion, we've got quite a high chance of passing these checks. As for items, we don't really need too much for this kind of basic build. You can of course add any magic items from further in the game to this, but Rain Dancer is good for creating water if you don't want to have a cleric do it for you or another character do it for you. I've taken the Amulet of Misty Step, which comes from Minthara. The Sapphire Spark from down in the Underdark is also a great alternative for this. And I thought it might just be interesting to give this sorcerer Ring of Poison resistance, so they are resistant to poison and fire. And later on, when they're level 6, they can also become resistant to cold damage, presumably for a short time. Sorcerers are proficient with light crossbows. Make sure you pick up one from the Nautiloid, it's the easiest place to find them. Otherwise, traders will have them ready for you as well. So here I am outside the Druid Grove, and in case you're wondering, I may have taken a few shortcuts to get to this point at level 4, but I haven't had much time to create videos, so I'll be taking a few shortcuts. And I'm going to show off a few things. So, Twin Spell. This works well, particularly with Chromatic Orb. So you pick an orb, anyone you want. I'm doing Fire and Ice, I'm going to go with the Ice theme. So we can attack maybe this Goblin Brawler, and also the surface will be created, which will get the Bugbear. And then maybe I want to kill, or attempt to kill this Goblin there, or let's go for that one. We've got high ground bonus. So I happened to miss, but I've still created a surface, and only one level 1 spell slot has been used. I'm going to create some water here with Shadowheart. This is all going to link up with Witch Bolt. Alright, next up I'm going to show you a twinned Witch Bolt, and in particular on the characters that are wet. This wet condition, wet, wet, wet. Sadly we can't get 3 of them. So you're going to hide first, just to make sure we get advantage. And height bonus, hiding successful. So we should see these two get eviscerated. So this did quite a lot of damage. Did 24 lightning damage because I rolled 12 and 1d12, and they are vulnerable to lightning damage, so it gets doubled from 12 up to 24. This goes from 9 up to 18, and all because they're wet. You don't have to use Create Water. You can throw a bottle of water as well. That works just as fine. And there is also a staff, which we'll get from the Grove, that gives you the spell Create Water anyway. Okay, now to show you the ridiculousness of Twinned Spell. So I'm currently hiding, so I can get advantage on my next attack against Zakrug, the Goblin Boss. He's causing some problems. It's a Twin Spell. Normally, a Twin Spell, you cannot target the same creature twice. However, there is a way around this. So we can target the creature with the first one, and then all you need to do is target the floor behind that creature, and it says path is interrupted, and we'll actually have both Chromatic Orbs hitting that creature. Look at that, we just did 38 damage. Had to use 2 sorcery points and a level 2 spell slot, so it's, it's a bit of an investment. But there, with 2 attack rolls on Zakrug, completely obliterated him. And you can imagine what that would do if that was maybe a lightning orb and he was wet, where we can double all that damage. And if he was somehow held, or Exposing Bite was on him, we could have guaranteed critical hits, or hold person. This way of using Twin Spell, I think, is safe to say not intended, perhaps bugged. And use it at your own peril, for your own cheese, if you wish. I've been using it on the live stream because I can't get over the fact that we can do this, but I don't know whether we should expect this to stay in the game. The last thing I want to show off in this part of the fight, or this fight, is Distant Spell. There are several good spells that are good candidates for using with this. First of all, Shock and Grasp. Usually a touch spell, range of 5 feet, it goes up to 30 feet. Unfortunately, I can't quite reach him, but I'm also, at the same time, at this point, I'm going to show you the ridiculousness of another spell to use with Distant Spell, which is Misty Step. Misty Step's range is normally 60 feet with Distant Spell. It's up to 90 feet. Gone through enough of the game yet? You might be able to access different areas more easily with this. We've got an extra 30 feet to play with. So just to show this off a little bit, and I'm not even going to go the full 90 feet, but we can get over to here. And then Distance Spell. So Shock and Grasp is great. If you hit an enemy with Shock and Grasp, they cannot take any reactions. But even better than that is if you've got a scroll, let's say of Inflict Wounds, which is normally a 5-foot range, we can now do it at a much larger range and do 26 damage. Wow, that's one of the highest rolls I've ever had for that on 3d turn. So I just want to point out, I have just used Create Water here, and you can see the outline of the water. And I managed to hit Trin and Anders here, and they don't become aggressive after being made wet. But they only stay wet for 3 turns. I'm going to try and send a Witch Bolt towards Anders. Missed, but because of the water surface we created, Trin here is electrocuted. Took 8 damage. Rurik and Trin are standing just about close enough, I think. We can stick Cloud of Daggers here. So what will happen is, they both just took 4d4 slashing damage. And at the beginning of their next turn, they'll take that damage once again. And I can also, at this point, show off Quickened Spell. So I've just cast a spell as an action, which is good. I've got a bonus action left. And then if I use Quickened Spell, which uses 3 sorcery points, so beware, that's quite a lot, I can then cast any other spell I want to. You know, it doesn't really matter which one. Maybe I want to go for Armour of Agathis. Yeah, let's go for Armour of Agathis. And just because I can, Hellish Rebuke. Try and provoke an opportunity attack. Oh, he missed. If he'd hit me, I could maybe have done some extra damage. Okay, I've just tried to make my Sorcerer the main target. Oh, Cloud of Daggers. Oh, unfortunately, because we got knocked over, we didn't actually get to use Hellish Rebuke. Oh no, Armour of Agathis went off. But it looks like Hellish Rebuke didn't. I didn't get to use Hellish Rebuke, and it's now gone. So don't use Armour of Agathis and Hellish Rebuke on the same turn. I lost concentration because I was hit, so things aren't looking great. But I can set up another Cloud of Daggers. Cloud of Daggers is not going to be able to solve all of your problems, especially if it doesn't actually hit the enemy. So beware, when I had the spell being prepared there, these two were highlighted. They even had a little animation, but they weren't really within the range of the spell. I'm just going to attempt to push Rurik through the Cloud of Daggers, and he did take the damage, so you can be pushing. And I would assume if you had a Druid, Thorn Whip would be able to pull them back through these daggers. So I just got messed up. Both Gale and my Sorcerer got knocked down by something Rurik did. So what we're going to do, help the Sorcerer up. So normally, if you get helped up on your turn, you have just a bonus action. And you might be thinking, oh dear, that's not very good. I've only got a bonus action. Then you remember you're a Sorcerer. And you remember you've got the Scroll of Healing Word. And you've got 1 sorcery point left for Twin Magic. So you can cast Healing Word on Gale here and Shadowheart at the same time. To get them both back up. Obviously, if you had an action, maybe you could throw a healing potion. You could have just used Healing Word, but we now helped our team twice instead of once on a single turn with a single bonus action and a sorcery point. One last chance to show off Cloud of Daggers. This mage has got Mirror Image up, so the armor class is relatively high at the moment, 19. I don't want to deal with that. Cloud of Daggers. It has no saving throw, it has no to hit roll. I also happen to have a potion of speed going, so set up the Cloud of Daggers, and then we can send in Magic Missile. And just to show you how well Cloud of Daggers can work. Okay, 2 hit points, that's definite. I'm just going to skip through the turns. And she dies, because at the beginning of her turn she took 10 hit points of damage. Right, that's going to be it. I didn't want this video to be too long. I didn't want anything fancy, any magic items that take a long time to get. Everything's supposed to be relatively easy to get a hold of here. Let me know what you think of the build. It's just a basic build. Let me know how well you're getting on with your sorcerers, if you're even using a sorcerer, and what builds you are using. If you made it this far, please consider subscribing. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.